Okay, welcome to our first Fridays free group office hours. Who has a question? Actually, everyone, if you can, I'm gonna get you all to mute yourselves. Actually, I just did it. So, raise your hand if you have a specific question, or you can also type it into the chat. Nobody wants to go first. Okay, Sam?
Sure. I think I asked this on Instagram, but I know that having a niche is really important. But at the same time, I'm wondering if I can have two niches. I don't know, I want to do dance photography. That's my passion. I was a dancer, now a photographer. But I don't want that to cut me off from other types of work, or I mean, if it applies to other types of work, that's great. I don't know how to balance that, if I can have one portfolio with a little of my two specialties, I guess, portraiture, travel, dance, or if they really need to be separate. I don't know what your advice would be on that.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I get that all the time. And you hear a lot that it's important to be niche, but I think if the categories of work that you're doing work together, then it makes sense to have multiple galleries, different types of work. So if you're doing travel, lifestyle, portraits, that makes sense. If you're doing food and interiors and portraits, that makes sense, because if you think about your clients and the different needs that they have, that will help you figure that out. Where I think you need to separate is when you're doing retail versus commercial and editorial. So if you're doing weddings and family portraits, you don't want to have those on the same website as your commercial lifestyle work. And I do believe that the fewer types or the fewer categories of work that you have, the better, because the more specialized you seem on your website, the more people are going to see you as someone who's really experienced and trust you more, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yes. I feel like I've noticed on a couple of dance commercial/commercial photographers that I followed through like the pandemic that I've seen like a small button or a small section that can link to more like consumer retail portrait sessions. I don't necessarily want that to be the main focus on my website, but can there be any link connecting them? And it wouldn't be weddings or families, babies. It would just be like dance portraiture to work with artists. I don't know if those should even touch or if that should be completely separate. Because there's like working with dance companies for their marketing needs, but also like professional dance artists.
Yes. Well, another thought that I have about being a specialist versus being a generalist is if you are more interested in working locally and within your region, I think it's more appropriate there to be a generalist or to have more categories of work than, let's say, if you want to be a dance photographer who's hired to go all over the world for really high-end commercial things, or do you want to be a dance photographer who's shooting in your region? So if you're wanting to get hired by, T Magazine and be known as the top dance photographer in the world, then I would say you probably want to hide that retail work. Maybe it's a link in your About Me or your contact page that says, click here for my other types of portraits, or click here for my headshots, or whatever it is. I wouldn't include that in the main gallery. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, who would like to go next? Let me get back to my group view. Okay, I'm back.
I'll go.
All right, Lisa.
I am wondering, is it time to get back to normal now, calling people and making appointments and all that stuff?
That is the $1 million question, right? I mean, for me, I've been like, don't stop. I mean, maybe for a few weeks at the beginning of March, I was like, okay, let's see what's happening. But yes, I do think it's time. I think that when you're reaching out to people, it's important to start a conversation rather don't email someone and say, hey, are you back to work? Can you hire me? Let's make some money. I think when you're going into those conversations, and you know this, Lisa, to say hello, ask them how they're doing, ask them how their business has changed, let them know what safety protocols you have in place, what you're able to do safely. If there's some way that you can show them work that you've done while you've been in quarantine to inspire them. Another thing, I was having a conversation with Andrea Stern on her Instagram. She had a question about should we be showing older work or work that we shot before quarantine? Should we even be showing work that we did before safety protocols were in place? And I was saying, yes, you should show any work, but if you can show people things that you are able to do safely, you might have some clients out there who are just too worried about creating new content, and showing them what you've done might inspire them to say, okay, maybe it is okay for us to get back to work. So yes, I would say definitely be in touch, ask people how they're doing, you know, low pressure, starting conversations, and showing what you can do, showing the problems that you can solve and how to do that safely. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, like, I'm in Chicago, and I know, like, I've been talking to some digital techs about random things, and I know they're busy working and stuff like that. So I know people are back to working, I mean, I've had a few jobs already. I just haven't been, I've been working on my marketing. So I've been working on my new prospect list and stuff like that. So I'm not quite ready with it, but I was like, while I'm working on that bigger project, maybe I should set aside time each day to call a few people, or email, like you said. And what do you think about that, calling versus email?
I think everyone's different. I think right now calling is probably more difficult because people are not in the office. They probably don't want to be getting cold calls from photographers on their cell phones. So I would try email. I would try LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't know about phone calls right now. That's a great question, though. If you know they're in the office, maybe give them a call. If you've worked with them before and you have a relationship with them, I think that's fine. That's a great question. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to a question that someone sent me in email who wished to remain anonymous. And that one was, I shoot portraits for outlets like the New York Times and Bloomberg, and have been trying to get on the radar with publications like Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and Time for a while. As someone who routinely sends cold intros to editors at various desks, I don't typically follow up. Guess what I'm going to say about that? I have an email tracker and can typically see when emails are opened or not. And the second part of the question was, do you recommend following up on these kinds of cold emails? If so, how? I would definitely wait a couple weeks, but in a lot of cases, I have emails that are months since sent, and I'm not sure what kind of verbiage would be appropriate. Is a follow-up a good place to include a pitch? Okay, so you definitely want to have a strategy with your emails and following up. And I was listening to a webinar today, a photo shelter webinar about pitching travel work. And this woman who is a travel photographer had this really interesting tactic that I hadn't really thought of before, of getting, and I tell my clients this, get in people's line of sight from all different angles. So email, LinkedIn, print promos, social media. And I say start with the email and then hit them from different sides. But she was starting with just getting in their field of vision before sending that email so that your name feels really familiar to them. And I think that's so smart. So maybe you follow and engage with them on LinkedIn if they're posting articles there. And make sure it's really authentic. comment on their post on Instagram when you can leave an authentic comment. That's not like, hey, looks like a great burger. Can you hire me for a job? So yes, I definitely say if you send a cold email just introducing yourself, just a very general email, then I would follow up every 2 to 3 months with new work. If you have new work, just pop your head in. If you start with a pitch, like pitching a specific story, follow up a few days to a week later. And let's see if I got all of the how to. Yeah, and I think it's okay. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to bother people. Well, photo editors, part of their job is to be bothered by photographers. And if you have good work, if you have beautiful work, they're going to be happy to be bothered by you. Now, if you're emailing them every 3 days with saying, I don't know if you got my last email, you didn't respond to my last email, of course, that's going to be annoying. But if you're sending them beautiful work that has something to do with what they're publishing, don't worry about it. They expect this. Some of them hate emails, some of them love emails, and you really just never know. So until someone tells you, stop emailing me, don't worry about it. And if someone doesn't open your email, definitely don't take it personally. It could be that it was a bad day or a bad time, and they could have just selected all of their email and threw it in the trash. So yes, definitely follow up. I hope that answered all of those questions. Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question. All right, Rebecca.
So my question is kind of basically to piggyback off that. How do you get people, like, do you have tips for getting people to open your emails? Because I feel like right now we're kind of stuck with just email marketing because, like maybe a few months ago, well, maybe last year, we would kind of be trying to get, like, the idea would be like, okay, we're email marketing, we're sending promos, and the goal is to try and get a meeting where you can show people your portfolio, you talk to them face to face, you grab a coffee, yada, yada, yada. But I don't feel like we can really do that right now. So like everything's kind of been moved to like, how do we interact and socialize through email? But how do you do that if people are being bombarded by email and not opening them? Because I feel like I'm getting a pretty low open rate right now, but not doing much different.
What platform are you using?
So I've been doing like a twofold approach with email marketing. Like I'll send out like kind of, every other month usually through Agency Access, like a larger blast. And then I was trying to individually email people just through Gmail, just kind of like, hi person, here's a blurb about me, why I like you, and let's have a Zoom meeting. But those, I kind of halted on those because I'd sent out a good chunk and really no responses. So you want to try and find the sweet spot of like following up and not bothering people, but also being effective.
So you're saying you were sending emails where you were asking for a Zoom meeting and you weren't getting a response to those. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different points to this question. So I am not an expert on the technical side of people opening things, but I did recently change my email address that I'm using to send when I'm sending through MailChimp, because so many of my emails were going to spam when people are using Gmail, when I'm sending to Gmail. So that's one thing I did. I think your subject line is really important. And I think if you are sending emails to editors, to photo editors and art buyers, you need to be, not using the tricky things that marketing people do, but being really literal with what you have to offer. I mean, Rebecca, I know when I see your email that it's going to be gorgeous food photos. So if those editors know who you are, I think they're going to open your emails. People are looking at their emails, but they might not be responding right now just because they don't know what the state of business is for them, and they don't know what to say. They don't have any. When photo editors don't respond to you, it's because they don't have anything to offer you, and they don't want to waste your time. So that's another thing, thinking about, you're worried about wasting their time, or you're worried about, you know, them opening too many emails, but they're also thinking about not wanting to waste your time because they don't have any jobs available right now. So that could be a reason why they're not responding to you. The other thing is, right now is a good time to go and double check all your contacts on LinkedIn to see if they still have that job, because there's a lot of people who are getting furloughed. So that could be another reason. And then just, you know, poke around, talk to whoever is your service provider for those email newsletters. And, you know, there are some companies where, I don't want to call out the one you're using specifically, but sometimes it can affect whether or not your email is seen as spam. So look into that a little bit. Did I answer all your questions there?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Let's see. Anyone else have a question? Raise your hand. Yes, Lilia.
This is kind of a very like timely question, and it's like very emotionally rooted, so I don't know that you'll have an exact answer, but you, as well as anybody else who might have some guidance or just like dealing with the same thing, I'm like very kind of passionately political on my personal Instagram account. And I keep up with my stories and I share resources and information. And I've just very much emotionally struggled with how to handle my um, business Instagram account, not in terms of like worried about what people are going to think of me. I don't care about that. But in terms of the emotional resources that I have to be like that engaged with my personal account, my personal politicalness, my business account, and then on top of that, having to almost like redo stories, which I haven't been doing. One thing that I saw somebody do, which I thought was interesting in their business account, was to just put a link in their personal bio to something that was meaningful to them, to an organization that was, you know, fighting for equal justice or something like that. So I just wanted to get, you know, other people's perspectives on how to kind of, you know, put your time and your effort into places. Because I do think that giving people an idea of who you are and your personality on your business account is really important. And, you know, these things matter a lot to me, but to devote so much time and just like emotional energy into two places on top of worrying about the projects that I'm posting and keeping that up to date, I found really like anxiety inducing for
Yeah.
me personally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all feeling anxious about that. And if you're feeling anxious about it, don't do it. So that was a lot of, I think that was a lot of questions. But on the general topic of how to message right now, because you want people to know that you're socially and politically aware and you have a position, but how to do that. So if you are not already comfortable with having those conversations, confident in what to post, if you're not already in that space, I would say you don't necessarily have to post about it. And I also tell some people, if they want to be engaged in that conversation on their business accounts, then you might look to some of the brands that you're working with or the brands that you want to be working with and see how they're messaging. But I don't feel like people need to post about these issues I think we can be activists without, every time something happens, people are posting about it. And I like what you said about the link, because I also have in my links to hire Black photographers. And I do post every now and then in my stories when something happens. But it really is, what are you comfortable with? Because I don't think you should be talking about those kinds of issues if you aren't really authentically engaged in solving problems there.
Yeah, I think like it's not a comfort level. Like I am fully comfortable having those conversations with people and brands. It's really just about kind of the redundancy. And I know that like the people who follow me on my photography account are not the same people who follow me on my personal account. But it's more just like, and I don't want this to come off shitty because I don't mean it that way, excuse my language, but like it's just a time thing, because I like do very much like everybody is saying, like I use my personal account, my stories, and my link in my bio to kind of like I said, share resources, use as a platform as my point of view, and to have those conversations. It's really just more about, I guess, feeling guilty that I'm not doing that to a different grouping of people who might not have an understanding of who I am and what I believe in. And it's just, I don't feel like I necessarily have the emotional bandwidth to be doing it in both places, and just kind of managing that guilt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I would say, if you don't feel like you have the bandwidth, don't do it. I mean, when you think about it, how many people are actually going to see your post? How many people are actually going to take action? There are probably other things that you can be doing that would have more impact. So yeah, let that go. You've got enough to deal with just keeping yourself alive right now. But that's a great question. And that's actually something that I talk about in my commercial photography masterclass at the end. I go into that a little bit. Okay, who wants to ask a question now? Anyone else? Charlene?
Yeah, so I'm just breaking into the commercial photography world. It's all very new to me. And so I'm just looking for like more information generally, but I thought this would be relevant. Like just how do you go about getting an agent? What are agents looking for in photographers? And at what point do you think an agent is necessary? Just generally about that.
Yes, so this is the question that so many photographers are asking over and over. And I don't know if you saw the APA series about this with Ask Stern Rep. So if you go to APA on YouTube and look for the series that Andrea Stern was doing, they did a couple of videos about this, and you can get an opinion from 3 different reps on this. And the first thing I want to say about this is I hear photographers ask this question almost every day. And what I want photographers to know is that you do not need a rep to validate yourself. I'm not saying that's your intention, but I think a lot of people feel like they haven't made it if they don't have a rep, and that's really just not true. Different reps are going to have different answers to the question of when you're ready. Me personally, when I was a rep, I wanted photographers who already had experience shooting commercial work, understanding big productions, working with producers, understanding how to create a treatment for an advertising agency bid, and already be involved in their own marketing strategy and marketing themselves. So I wanted to have photographers who had a basic understanding. Of course, you need to have a gorgeous portfolio. For me, I would want to see that you're at least doing a little bit of commercial work. And also know that this relationship is so much like a marriage. You don't want to, if you think you want a rep or you're ready for a rep, you don't want to start sending emails out to reps. And you certainly don't want to do the copy paste. So many people they copy paste the same email to as many reps as they can find. What you want to do is try and find a rep who you think will be the right fit for you, and you want to start dating. And maybe you just start with emailing them and asking them if they would look at your work. You don't want to jump in being like, hey, I want a rep, will you rep me? You want to start wooing them, dating them, flirting, and you want to start that relationship. And then maybe after about a year, you have, figured out if this is a person that you really want to like combine bank accounts with, so to speak. The other thing is, I would recommend working with someone, asking them to do some bids for you before you sign a contract. So see if you can find someone who will represent you, maybe a la carte. That's another thing. Also, if you're just getting started, I mean, you probably want to be like 5 to 10 years into it before you're needing a rep. But also think about working with a consultant, or yeah, I really think people should work with a consultant before they work with a rep, just so they know what it's like to be working with someone. Also, I think everyone should understand that right now, the traditional representation model is going away, just like with everything else. Maybe not completely, but there are so many agencies that have closed down in the past several years. There are so many consultants as well as directory type of businesses that are doing what reps do, again, on that a la carte basis, like getting you the meetings, bidding your jobs. You Yeah, I would just say think about that, because the model is changing right now. But know that you don't need to be represented to know that you're a fantastic photographer. I know it's probably easier to get into advertising agencies when you have a rep, but it's not impossible. I think we could talk about this for hours, honestly. But go listen to that Andrea Stern recording. She did too. And see if that helps. Did I answer everything? What else can I tell you about that?
That helped a lot. I think I need to watch her thing to get more of an insight, because you see like all these photographers and they're always rep by somebody, so it's kind of like oh man, do I need that? Like, because it's a little intimidating just breaking in and seeing all these people who are repped and have a whole bunch of like an army behind them, essentially, like helping them grow and grow and grow. And so
Yeah.
coming in like solo, brand new, it's a little intimidating.
Yes.
No, but I also think should look into like a consultant, just to kind of like, I just need like a guidance, like someone next to me.
Yes.
So this is the way and this isn't.
Yeah, look for a consultant, look for mentors, go like cold call another photographer. They're probably sitting by their phone right now, just like this. Cold
Yeah.
call a photographer who's killing it in the space that you want to be in, and ask them if they will talk to you. Find a mentor. I think that's great. And also understand that a rep is not going to do your business for you. They will hopefully help you find new clients, and they will be and the cherry on top of your marketing sundae, but they're not going to do your work for you. They're not going to find you all your clients. And also, something I think photographers should know is that creatives want to meet you. They don't want to meet your rep. They don't care about your rep. Creative directors and art directors want to meet you. You're the cool person. You're the artist. So just figure out how to meet those creative directors and those art directors. Reps can be amazing, but they're not always necessary.
Sounds good. Thank you.
About that.
You're welcome. Okay. Anyone else have a question?
Well, can I just say something about the rep thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to say I've had a few reps, and I felt that same way you were talking about, Amy, like you need to have a rep to validate yourself early on. And I had this rep in New York reach out to me, and then I gave them a percentage of my existing business that was part of the contract. I ended up giving them more work than they found for me, and giving away money, And, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I still feel that feeling of, oh, I need a rep to validate myself. And I've had a few, and I don't have any now. And I sometimes wonder, and I do think sometimes it's easier to get into agencies, but I think Amy is exactly right on that. They don't find, necessarily find you your jobs, and so I, sometimes I felt like, oh, I just want to have a rep to like sit back and chill, let them do the work, but it never turns out that way.
Yeah, that can happen for sure. Whoa, sorry about that. Charlene, what kind of photography do you do?
I'm starting to do more beauty and product photography.
Okay, well, I'm assigning you Lisa as your new mentor. You
Okay.
can get in touch. Okay, raise your hand if you have another question.
I have a question. So I'm not on video, but
Hi, Michelle. Go ahead.
hi. I was just kind of wondering about like licensing and what to charge, or if there is a range to charge for that, or how more info on that.
That's very general. Can you give me an example, the kind of job?
Let's see. I'm talking to somebody about, it's like a lookbook shoot right now, and they want all the rights to the photos, and I don't know if $1,000 is good, or or just don't do it, or
So they're asking for copyright, or they're asking for all use and forever?
all use and forever.
Yeah, that's really tricky. This is another thing that I'm covering in my master class. And so the first thing is, when someone reaches out to you about a job, you want to get as much information as you can, ask as many questions as you can before you give them a quote. So ask them what their budget is. If they won't give you their budget, ask them maybe what they've paid in the past. If you can't get that information, you can start asking questions like, do you want to use agency represented talent? Or how much money do you want me to budget for talent? Or how much money do you want me to budget for hair and makeup? Because you can tell from those amounts how much money they're willing to spend maybe on other things. So if they are, quoting what would be a normal average rate for an agency represented hair and makeup artist, that kind of tells you what their understanding is of rates. It also kind of depends on what city you're in. Is this a local company? Is this a regional company? Is this a global company? I would go and look at some of the photography that they already have done to see maybe who they've worked with in the past. And the quality of their photography, that will kind of give you an idea of what their budget might be. I mean, it's so hard. This is another one of those $1 million questions. It's so hard to say. I would just recommend, if someone reaches out to you and they don't give you their budget, get them on the phone. Say, hey, can I ask you a few more questions about the shoot? Get them on the phone, because it's a lot easier to get information out of people over the phone than through back and forth on email. So that's another trick. If it's for a local company, meaning that they only sell in your city, or maybe they sell online to just through their website, they probably have less of a budget than a company that's selling on. So this is an example I give in my course. If you are trying to be hired by a company, maybe they sell makeup, but they only sell it through their website, and their products are about $10 in range. That's going to be a much smaller rate for a shoot available than for a brand that sells a $200 eye cream on Sephora. But in general, for local businesses, I say try and get at least $1,500. That's just starting out. That's just starting day rate. That doesn't even include your equipment or your licensing. If it's a global brand that's recognizable, that maybe is working through an ad agency, then maybe $5,000 to $10,000 day rate. So what you're doing is a lookbook. So that would really depend on, is this a local boutique in your town? Is it a bigger company that's going to be sending out catalogs? Yeah. Did I answer your question at all?
Yes, you did. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. That's always the tricky one. My rule of thumb is if you consider yourself a professional photographer, a truly professional photographer, try and make at least $100 an hour through the entire process of, you know, time spent on bidding and meetings and production and shooting and post-production and billing and all of that stuff. I think that's a good rule of thumb. I'm sure people would disagree with me on that, but anybody else have a question? All good? Okay. So has anyone here, raise your hand, have you signed up for my masterclass? Anyone? Oh, thank you, Sam. If anyone is on the fence about it or has any questions, let me know. I would love to answer your questions about it. And if you need a discount code, send me a DM. I'll send you a big discount code. I'm so excited about it and excited to tell everyone about that. And is anyone else following, Michelle, you might be, Art of Freelance? Were you on their happy hour last night? Anyone?
I was,
Michelle,
yeah.
I think I saw you there.
I saw you too, yeah.
Yeah, that was so much fun. So if you're not on Art of Freelance, I recommend getting on their mailing list. They did this happy hour and they broke people up into groups of 4. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So we have about 15 minutes left. If anyone else has another question, otherwise, if anybody wants to answer a question for me, I would love to know. This was a question that we did last night from Art of Freelance. What goals do you have for the next 3 months of your creative career? And is there anything that's standing in your way besides COVID? Does anybody want to talk about their goals? No? Nope. All right. Well, thank you all so. Oh, here we go.
I'll talk about it. I'm sorry. I thought I'd wait to see if someone talked. My goal, I guess I am thinking of it because of COVID, that I'm like taking the time to really like nail down my prospect list and get my mailers organized for the next year. I guess I am kind of thinking the next 3 months are kind of a wash, and that I have this time to do and start out the year right. So that's what I've been working on, along with, branding stuff and things like that.
That's great. It's definitely the time to get the house in order. Chris, did you have something? You're muted. Cool. Hover over your face and see if you can hit the unmute.
There we go.
There we go.
I have to take the time to zone my portfolio in and make it smaller. I've been shooting a lot. I've been broadening what I feel more authentic to me. I know more things that I am intrinsically am feeling good about. So I really have to zone it in, because it's too big. It's too big. And I used to be a jewelry artist. I used to make jewelry and be a metalsmith, and it was the same thing. I like so much, but when I looked at something, it was disparate. It didn't have the right focus to have the audience that I need. So that's what I really have to work on. That's why I was thinking about your course, and it's in my cart. I just didn't hit spend yet. And I'm afraid about my age a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have 5 or 10 years to be working before I get a rep. Not that that's a golden rule, but a lot of people are a lot younger than me, so that their career has a longer propensity to last than mine does. It doesn't mean my work is better or less. It just means I came a little later to the game. So that's a block sometimes that I got to get rid of, you know.
Yes, you do have to get rid of that. You don't know. I mean, you might be way more motivated and organized and have more business savvy than all these kids out here.
Maybe. So zoning in is really where I got to go right now.
Yeah, good. That's a good goal to have. Narrow it down, get niche if you can.
Yeah.
That's great. Does anyone else want to share a goal? Sam?
I just signed up for Palm Springs Photo Festival reviews, and I've never done, I mean, I saw your portfolio review test one, I think one, but I've never done that before. So I think for me, getting ready for that, I know it's only like, what, a couple weeks away, is a like big thing. And then I guess following up after, or I don't know, I'm doing that, and then I'm going to do the Art of Freelance workshop type thing. So I think that's going to cover the next 3 months, and making content more like to really tailor it, but you know, doing that with COVID still.
Yes. Yeah. How long have you been shooting dancers?
Like sorry, my toddler is really noisy. Randomly for like 5 years. I mean, I was a dancer, so even cell phone photos while I was dancing with the company, but I guess forever.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I'm going to introduce you to Tatiana, who's in the group. She also shoots dancers, and she was at the Palm Springs Photo Festival last year. So maybe she will help answer some questions for you. So
now I'm noticing the dancing poster in the background.
I'm just offering you up, Tatiana.
Yeah, I know I would be more than happy, really, because I like to get down with the dance world in any way I can. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk offline after or whatever, Sam.
If I just Google your name, I'll just be able to find your.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, or send me a message, and I'll connect you. I love this. We're like a dating show now.
Yay.
All right, let me just really quickly scroll through. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm looking at the chat. Are there places like Wonderful Machine that will help you with some of the stuff reps would do, like bidding or marketing for a la carte rates? Yes, absolutely. So Wonderful Machine will do that. Found will do that. One of my clients just won a really big job with the help of Found doing their bid. So that's great. Yes. So I think those are the two main ones that have those a la carte services. Were there any other questions from anyone? All right. Oh yeah, here we go. Tatiana.
So recently I've done an editorial job and a commercial job for a small UK brand. And I did a lot of behind the scenes and things to sort of create some content for Instagram or my website to try to get a little bit of buzz around me doing something during COVID. And, you know, I'm not quite sure how to not just use Instagram. Like, what would you suggest being able to, and I probably asked you this when we talked, but just to confirm for the group too, I think it's a good thing for everyone to chip in on, is like, where do you put that content other than like, you know, or is that something you send in an email, or is that annoying? Like, I don't know.
No, we are not worried about being annoying.
Okay.
People want to see your gorgeous photos. Yes, put it in a newsletter and say, hey, this is my new work. People want to see that. People are at their desks wanting to see gorgeous photos and be inspired. Go to LinkedIn and create an article and make it native to LinkedIn. And also having this content repeat in all these different places is going to do that thing where we're getting on all sides of their field of vision. And then Tatiana, for you, you can try and submit that to the directories that you're in ask them to repost it on their social media, on their LinkedIn, in their newsletters, in their blogs. And then also, depending on what type of content it is, you could also pitch it to magazines or pitch it to other Instagram accounts and ask them if they want to share it. So there's
actually, on that note, I got an email this morning from the UK client. They had written an entire story based on how they came about working with me, and she wants to pitch it there because they have some ties to Vogue and stuff. So it was a really interesting thing that I really didn't understand about how to, they told me, they just did it without me asking.
Yeah.
And so that was just icing.
That's
It
great.
was nice. Yeah.
The clothing company?
Yeah, the clothing company.
Oh, I can't wait to see those.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I delivered it yesterday, and so hopefully, in the next couple weeks, I'll be able to talk about it or whatever. Yeah.
Wonderful. Charlene, do you have another question?
Just quickly, can you talk about location and work? Because being in Orlando, I've gotten a few comments of saying like, oh, you need to leave Orlando, you need to go to LA, San Francisco, New York, and I'm sitting here like, oh, okay, well that's a big turn. Is that true? Should I be starting to and like look in a few years, maybe like make a turn, go to a different market, or do you think I could survive here in Orlando?
So you're wanting to do beauty, right? So your clients
Correct.
would be makeup companies, is that right?
Correct.
Yes, I would say if you really want to do big beauty brands, then you need to be in New York, but you could also maybe be in Miami.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, you want a bigger market with at least some great models.
Right.
But for beauty, I would say New York's probably a good place to be, but you could possibly do it in Miami.
I'll play around. We'll see what happens.
Yes. All right. Did anyone else have a question? Another question, Rebecca?
So I guess like still on the terms of like goals and such, I've been trying to find different ways of connecting with like new prospects, because like really all I've been doing during this COVID period is like repeat client work. Like I haven't had very many new inquiries. So I'm trying out some directories. So I'm signing on for Production Paradise for a year, and I'm doing Wonderful Machine for a while at least. Do you have tips for making that work the best for your, the best in your favor? Because like obviously I think, just with anything, if you sign on and have somewhere and you don't really put a lot of effort, it's not going to return a lot. But what can you suggest to make those kind of things a little more active?
Yes, absolutely. So you've probably already seen this, but I do have the photo directory and source book full review, full report. It's like a consumer reports on directories on my website. That's also included in my new course. So do your research first. And if you have a question about which one to sign up for, definitely reach out to me. But for you, since you already know what you're doing, I would stay on them. Whoever your account person is, I would be in touch with them every month or two to ask them what opportunities there are for them to share your work. So with Wonderful Machine, they are doing a lot of stuff on Instagram. They also have a blog. Anytime you have new work, send it to them, ask them to include it in their blog. Stay on top of them. You really have to stay on top of them. With Production Paradise, I know that they have those emails that they send out all the time. I think you might have to pay up for them, but that's something that you can do with Production Paradise. So it really just depends on which directory you're on and what the options are. So, but they have the ability to share your work in emails and sometimes in print. But I would seriously stay on them, like schedule a phone call with your person every month and ask them, what's going on? What are my stats? What are your stats? What are you hearing? Who's shooting? Who's getting the most traffic? Just grill them, like get every penny's worth, squeeze it out of them. But yeah, I think you know, directories are always hit or miss, but I feel like right now, since there are not as many in-person meetings, these directories, people are looking more towards directories right now. I think that's possible. Also, if you're with a directory that normally does in-person meetings, ask them what they're doing in lieu of that. They should be getting creative. They should be getting innovative. So that's another thing when you're looking at it for a directory right now, ask them how they're solving that problem. Asking what they're doing in lieu of what they've been doing in the past. And you really want to hear from them that they're being innovative. You don't want to hear from them that they're just like, oh, we're waiting it out. Like, yeah, get on top of them. Oh my gosh. All right. We have time for one more question. Anyone? All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. This was so fun. And if you liked it, I think maybe we should do this every month. I think that would be really great. And if you, let's see, I think you're all on my newsletter. If you're not on my newsletter, if you're watching this on later on YouTube, get on my newsletter if you want to hear about our first Friday's group office hours.